This is the Mets Postcast, your instant game reaction for the New York Mets. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
The New York Mets play their wildest game of the season. Unfortunately, it does not go their way as the San Diego Padres walk them off in the bottom of the ninth as they lose by a final score of 7-6. Welcome into the Mets Postcast here, the Locked On Mets YouTube channel, the Locked On Mets podcast feed. Your postcast host, Chris Schubert, here with you after each and every Mets game throughout the course of the season. And I think we all just need to take one big, deep breath because that was a lot. A lot of things happened. I'm not sure if we're going to remember them all. I'm not sure we're going to be able to get to them all here on the postcast. We'll certainly give it our best shot. We very rarely do this when we're doing the postcast, but I think our what you'll be talking about should just be a chronological order of what we all saw tonight.
This is what you'll be talking about.
I'll ask all of you to keep me honest here to make sure that we hit all of the major notes from this game. I'll try to go based off of my memory, what I have here written down. But if I missed anything, please make sure to throw it there in the YouTube chat. Okay, the Mets and Padres started a game. Mets got out to an early 1-0 lead with Brett Baty hitting a sacrifice fly, handing Frankie Montas a lead. The Mets then gave up that lead in the bottom of the third. And then the fifth inning happened, and it was Mark Vientos, who was robbed of a home run earlier in the game, stepping up and crushing a moonshot, a grand slam out to right field to give the Mets a 5-1 lead. And you're thinking that this was going to be exactly the game the Mets needed. We knew that they were going to be shorthanded out there in the bullpen tonight. That certainly played a major role in what we saw as the game progressed. And so having a nice, comfortable lead. Felt like we were watching a rerun of Friday night's game against San Francisco when the Mets handed Clay Holmes a 5-1 lead. And Carlos Mendoza could go to his not A-plus relievers, but his middle leverage relievers, his low leverage relievers, and save some of the big arms for later in the series. That's the way the game was trending. And then the fifth inning happened. It was 3 straight hits against Frankie Montas. The Mets then ended up turning to Huascar Brazoban. Again, a byproduct of not having Reed Garrett in this game, not having Brooks Raley in this game, not having Edwin Diaz in this game. It compressed a lot of things for the Mets, not having probably Jose Butto in this game, although I wonder if he would have been the pitcher that the Mets turned to if this game got to a 10th inning. But it was Huascar Brazoban who got the call, and a miscue, a misstep by Huascar Brazoban, not covering on the ball that would have gotten him out of it, would have kept the Mets in the lead. He doesn't cover. Pete makes another incredible play, keeping the ball in front of him. That spirals. Brazoban mentally just kind of loses sight of things there. The Padres take the lead 6-5. Now, we're going to skip over a major thing that occurred in this game that led to Carlos Mendoza being ejected and then what happened in the Juan Soto at bat. We'll get back to that. Don't worry, I have that written down here. But then it is in the ninth inning when Ronny Mauricio, for the second straight night, comes through for the New York Mets with a big home run. Ronny Mauricio ties the game at 6. The Mets then shorthanded in their pen. They turned to Gregory Soto for the second straight night. And again, it was another miscue fielding as a comebacker to Gregory Soto had all the time in the world to throw to Lindor, throws a ball away from Lindor, carries him into left field, or at least the dirt going in that direction, not able to get the lead runner. That directly sets up the walk-off hit for the Padres. I think we got it all. 7-6, the Mets fall in this one, a wild one. The wildest game perhaps they played all season long. And in fact, I had the graphic ready to go, talking about a Mets meltdown and talking about Huascar Brazoban and Frankie Montas in that fifth inning. And then Ronny Mauricio had that big swing to tie things back up there in the ninth inning. Just an absolute huge home run for Ronnie. But yeah, that's all the stuff that happened. And yeah, let's talk about it. I don't like to give too much credence to this type of stuff, but it was really egregious tonight. Emil Jimenez, just with one of the worst nights you're going to see behind the plate for an umpire. The pitch that he called early in the game that Soto almost got himself ejected on was borderline at best. And good on Carlos Mendoza. Good on, I think it was Pete Alonso was in there. Good on the Mets coaching staff to make sure that Juan Soto did not get ejected in that moment of the game. And then later on, Juan comes up. I forget what inning it was in the game. Again, a lot of stuff happened. But he comes up and borderline is too generous for how high up in the zone this pitch was. It was nearly at Juan's eyeballs. And he calls it a strike and then gives Juan a look. I don't like saying this. I don't like using this phrase. Friends and I joke around about it. That is the definition of an ump show. That is the definition of an umpire making it all about them. I cannot wait. I don't know if it's out already. It'll probably be out tomorrow morning. I cannot wait to see the ump scorecard from Emil Jimenez's night tonight, because it was egregious, and more egregious than the actual calls is the staring down of Juan Soto, making it very clear what he was doing in that moment. And shout out to Juan, and Ray just pointed it out, that it would have been very understandable, and I would have defended Juan here in the postcast if he would have gotten ejected in that moment. After he said his piece early in the game, certainly wasn't happy with that call in the beginning stages of this one. I would have felt for Juan and would have understood if Juan got ejected, but he kind of just hit him with the smile like, okay, I see what you're doing here. And he walked back to the dugout, and John Gibbons, who was in there for Carlos Mendoza, who got ejected, I thought probably could have gotten run there if he wanted to, just to really make a point. But yeah, just a bad night all across the board for Emil Jimenez behind the plate, but no excuse for the Mets. The Mets made two bad fielding errors, and it was just me a couple of days ago here in front of this microphone that said when the Mets play good, sound, fundamental baseball, they win, and they can win a game like they did on Saturday night 2-1. Well, if Huascar Brazoban covers first base and Gregory Soto doesn't throw the ball into left field, or was going to go into left field if not for Francisco Lindor saving the ball, we're not talking about any of this stuff that happened in this game. And instead, we're talking about the Mets picking up their 8th straight win. The offense was there tonight. Vientos had a big hit. Mauricio had the big home run. And unfortunately, the Mets couldn't do the little things. They did them on Saturday. They didn't do them tonight. And a couple of fielding errors from their pitching staff really doomed them in this one. Yes, let's talk about Mark Vientos and the big hit that he had in the 5th. The other stuff to keep an eye on, the Mets, their bullpen, they're kind of behind the 8 ball here at the start of this series already. We'll get to all of that, some of your thoughts as well here on the Mets Postcast as we do a little Mets After Dark. The Mets fall in a wild, crazy baseball game, 7-6 in the opener of this series against the Padres. All of that here on the other side. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? Well, with Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than just a budgeting app. It is a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. Everything in one app allows you to track all those specific categories. You want to keep an eye on your takeout, your subscriptions, that miscellaneous category that just grows and grows and grows. All of that can be seen in the Monarch Money app. You share finances with someone. It's going to allow you to stay on the same page. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. Today's episode of the Mets Postcast brought to you by Gameday Hue. Gameday Hue makes clean, no logo gear with team-inspired colorways for every pro and college fan base. It's all about letting your colors speak for you. No giant logos, just smart, versatile style that works on game day, on the course, or anywhere in between. The hat's going to pair perfectly with all of your usual gear. It doesn't replace your team's logo. It just adds to the lineup. You can wear it to tailgates, tee times, when you're out running errands. You're going to get compliments, and you can rep your team without screaming it. It's subtle, but still says everything. And it's not just hats. Check out their split shade gloves made for the golf course, or the perfect gift for the fan who has everything. Right now, you can get 15% off with code MLB15 at GameDayHue.com. That's GameDayHue.com. The code even stacks on bundle deals, so now's the time to load up. Let your colors talk, because colors speak louder than words. That's GameDayHue.com, code MLB15. We are back here on the Mets postcast. Chris Schubert with you, the Locked On Mets YouTube channel, the Locked On Mets podcast feed. The Mets see their 7-game winning streak snapped in the wildest game that they have played this season. I'm not sure if there's a game that I can think of that was this back and forth, that had this many big moments. I mean, Carlos Mendoza gets ejected early. It's funny. I have the SNY postgame show up on the screen, and Carlos Mendoza is talking. I mean, he's talking about a game that he barely saw. He saw it from the comfort of his office there in the clubhouse. He wasn't even involved in a lot of this game. He gets ejected. Vientos with the big hit. Mauricio with the big hit. The ump show in the later stages of this game. The Mets not having their A-plus relievers and just doing whatever they can. And credit to the bullpen. Credit to Rico Garcia and Ryan Stanek, because they did an impressive job keeping this at a one-run game. And that allowed the Mets to keep the door open, where one swing, and in this lineup, there are a lot of guys that are just one swing away from tying the game. You saw it with Mauricio in the 9th inning. You saw it with Soto the other night in San Francisco. Basically, everybody in this lineup has a license to go deep and tie a game in that spot. So shout out to Rico Garcia. Shout out to Ryan Stanek for keeping this game as a one-run deficit, giving the Mets a chance there in the 9th inning. Okay, let's talk about it. Mark Vientos, his name circulating all over the place. Rumors about his future in New York. He's being discussed in trades. The Mets apparently have a willingness to discuss trading Mark Vientos if it means help to their big league roster for this playoff push. Tonight, a reminder why maybe that is not in the cards, and a reminder of why the Mets front office and the Mets brass love Mark Vientos, love Brett Baty, love Ronnie Mauricio. All of these young players for the New York Mets have come through here over the last couple of days, and it has been a very hot stretch for Mark Vientos. What are we up to? A 7-game hitting streak now for Mark. Had the big hit on Saturday night to give the Mets the go-ahead lead in that game, 2-1. At the time, the big hit in this game to break things open to give the Mets the 5-1 lead. I mean, he has just been swinging a really hot bat, and you see why he is being trusted and being thrusted back into this lineup. And this is the start of the guy that we saw all of last season, the guy that we saw in the postseason carry this Mets team at times on his back with how good of a bat he can swing. I know the defense is up in the air. He's been playing some DH, but man, he has shown that power here over the last couple of days, taking the ball the other way. And I'm on record with this. I think it would be a mistake to trade Mark between now and Thursday's trade deadline. I think at this point, I tweeted it out during the game after Mauricio hit the home run. I think you trade for a couple of more relievers, and I think you roll with the baby Mets. I think you roll with Mauricio, you roll with Baty, you roll with Vientos. Does it make it awkward every day for Carlos Mendoza to try to put these guys in the lineup and get them all equal at bats? Yeah, but you have seen the potential in all three of these guys, and I think that potential is worth tapping into right now. And so you find ways to get Ronnie Mauricio in the game. And tonight, I think, was the perfect deployment of these guys, right? Vientos is the DH. Mauricio at third, played a good hot corner, made a great play with Gregory Soto there in the 9th inning, made a couple of nice plays as well in the field before that, and Baty at second base. And so it feels like that's the best way to deploy these guys. Until Jesse Winker comes back, it does become a little awkward at that point. But for right now, it feels like that's the way this Mets team should roll out. And again, that felt very Swaggy V-like, and not just because of the home run, but I think a very important note here to make is he gets robbed of the home run by Tatis earlier in the game. And so to be able to have the composure to bounce back, right? It was in the top of the 4th. They're actually showing the replay as I'm talking about Mark here on my feed for the post game or on SNY. He in the 4th inning gets robbed and comes back up in his next at bat in the 5th and takes basically the same pitch, puts it in the same spot, and this time is able to get enough of it and go the other way and put it into the seats for the grand slam. That, to me, is where the Swaggy V for Mark Vientos is back, is that he did not allow that at-bat of getting robbed of the home run, getting robbed of that moment, get him down. He just continued to keep his head down, go to work, next at-bat, got the same pitch, said, you're not catching this one. You're not taking this one away from me. It was an absolutely just 2 great at-bats. And the one that got robbed could have very easily been a home run. So had some really nice swings tonight for Mark Vientos. The Mets obviously did not have their A-plus relievers, and it left them in a tough spot where they had to use Brazoban and Garcia and Stanek and Soto. And so Soto, he's going to be down for tomorrow. He's worked 2 days in a row. You get Garrett back tomorrow. You get Diaz back tomorrow. Stanek, you could probably work tomorrow if you wanted to. Brazoban, I'm not sure if you're going to want to go to him. You may want to give him a day off mentally after tonight's contest. Rico Garcia, after working 2 innings, you would assume he is down. So the Mets are a little behind the 8 ball. Brooks Raley is probably not, at least right now, going to be used back-to-back days. That's just a guess on my part. But coming off of the injury that he had, they probably want to take it slow with him, and they already have thrusted him into some high-leverage spots the moment he got back to the squad. And so it feels like they're more than likely going to try to stay away from him back-to-back days. So I don't think he was even available tonight. And Jose Butto pitched yesterday, so who knows what his availability was tonight. And so the Mets are kind of a little bit behind the 8 ball. That's why when they tie the game in the 9th, 2 thoughts came into my mind. One, boy, would it be great to steal this game after you gave it up in the 5th inning. But secondly, who's going to pitch? That was a question that I had. I wasn't sure how they were going to figure all of this out. And unfortunately, it didn't matter with some pitching miscues. Gregory Soto, man, thrusted into 2 really high leverage spots immediately. I don't think he pitched that poorly tonight. Made the great play with Mauricio, bouncing back from the poor play that he made earlier in the inning. I'm not going to be super worried about that. He didn't walk anybody. That's really the big thing with him. And again, if he makes that play to Lindor, they might have a chance of turning 2. They definitely get the 1 out. And so the entire complexion of the inning is different if he's able to make that play. So not going to worry too much about that. But good to see him immediately be thrusted into some high leverage and showing the trust that the team already has in him to be able to be put into those spots. So it was the fundamentals the other night that got it done for the New York Mets, and tonight it was the fundamentals that did the Mets in. I mean, those 2 plays sum up the unfortunate way that the ball broke tonight for the New York Mets. I know Pete had another 0 for 4. He's back in a little bit of a mini slump, and so you do worry about that. Lindor had 2 hits. Soto went 0 for 4. I'm going to give Soto a pass on the 0 for 4. I hope that's okay with all of you guys that we're going to give Soto a pass tonight on the 0 for 4, considering he got called out on 2 at-bats in which he probably should have been called out at the plate because of a really bad night by the umpire behind the dish. Oh, real quick, we could talk about Frankie Montas before we get out of here. It was a so-so night for Frankie. 4 1/3, 8 hits, the 5 earned runs, the 2 walks. Just did not have the command. Got himself into immediate trouble in this game. In that 2nd inning, in the 1st inning, he had a high pitch count just getting out of the 1st inning, going 1, 2, 3, and then that 2nd inning had some trouble, had some traffic on the base pass that he had to work around. And the Mets right now, each starter you can assume is going to give you probably 1 clean inning, maybe 2. The Mets right now don't have, maybe outside of David Peterson, their starters aren't stacking together like 3 innings where it's just clean. And not clean by throwing 9 pitches, throwing an immaculate inning, and just going right back to the dugout. But just having those clean, efficient, quick innings. You throw 12 to 15 pitches. You don't throw any high leverage pitches with a runner at 2nd or 3rd, runners in scoring position, those tough at bats. Just some clean living out there on the mound. And the Mets starters right now just aren't putting enough of those innings together. Frankie had one of those. I think it was in the 3rd, maybe it was the 4th. He had a quick inning he so desperately needed. I think it was the 4th because it let him go out there for the 5th. They just don't have enough of those right now. And so hopefully the starters can get back to doing that here sooner rather than later. Ray, thanks for the show, Chris. Always appreciate hanging out with you guys. And the thanks go to you because there are a decent amount of you here past nearly 1:30 on the East Coast as the Mets finish up this game. So you guys are the real troopers. I was going to be here pushing the button regardless. You guys being here, even after the Mets suffer a tough defeat tonight. The thanks go to all of you for joining us here on the postcast. We are back tomorrow, 2nd game of this series. Listen, the Mets weren't going to win every single game the rest of the way. It's unfortunate to lose this one, especially when you have the big 5-1 lead. Mauricio ties it up in the 9th. You think you're going to steal one. It's an unfortunate loss when they're self-inflicted wounds that do you in, but the Mets just will have to start a brand new winning streak tomorrow, and they will send Sean Manaea out to the mound in order to do so. For those of you new here, subscribe, turn on that notification bell so that you are notified when we go live here on the Locked On Mets YouTube channel. For those of you listening over on the Locked On Mets podcast feed, we appreciate you. If you want to join us live, you want to enjoy some Mets After Dark, we've had a couple of them here over the last couple of days during this West Coast swing past midnight doing these post-game shows. Join us on the Locked On Mets YouTube channel. You can join us live, share your thoughts among all the other Mets fans. A disappointing one for the Mets as some self-inflicted wounds get in the way of two big moments. Mark Vientos with his first career grand slam, and Ronnie Mauricio doing it again, hitting a big home run for the Mets. Unfortunately, both of those moments are buried in a loss, a tough loss for the Mets. But Sean Manaea will look to turn things around for this team tomorrow, and we will be right back here to break it all down. Have a good one, Mets fans.